we have you know, this other circle. There's this taking microfinance institution. What is Pride Microfinance? We've got housing finance. Yeah, but is you go for the is it a government? It's not. You know, Pride Microfinance is a government institution.
Okay.
You know, same as the Housing Finance Bank. These are national banks. They can run the mobile money.
Others which we can create.
And others which can be created. Because then wealth can be created. The wealth can be spread so that our people can also benefit from the country. Let me tell you this. The most saddest thing for me every day that I hear from government is how they are rejoicing that they are taxing the population. Every day you hear taxes have gone up from 1986 when we were collecting only this, you know, to now when we are collecting this. How can you be happy that a person earns 2 million and you take half of it? There is no government in history that has ever rejoiced in taxing its people. And there is no government which has ever survived taxation. No, you can't. The less taxes, that's why you hear in these other countries, people say, no, is the one that reduces taxation. But ours celebrate, you know. They say, listen, this is beautiful because we have collected taxes. That, when the government borrows, it mortgages you and I. It mortgages us. So, the government should not go to borrow because there is enough financial knowledge, enough financial techniques that our governments can use to create wealth domestically. And that's time, you know, that interview you were mentioning, I mentioned this question always comes up. I mean, he was not that educated, you know, exposed. He was under embargo, most countries could not deal with him. But look at what this man did. Satellite, he goes, he sees a satellite, he says, I want color TV. He brings it in 1974. He sees that OAU is going to host a conference here. He builds a hotel, you know, to host them. You know, he goes to New York. He says, what did this mean? They said the UN. He says, I want Uganda also to have the same street, you know, higher building. Yeah? He goes to Germany, they introduce him to soda. He said, this is nice, my ambassador must have this. Eh? He goes to London. I mean, the first time I was in London, and I went to Trafalgar Square, and I saw Ugandan flag. I thought it was like a mistake. Because really, that is not where you expect to head. That is not where you expect. You know, most embassies like in Tanzania, you know, they are in some remote area. But in Trafalgar Square, birds are flying like this, and you see the Ugandan flag waving at you and saying, you know, look at me. Yeah. Now, how was Amir able to do this? Cigarette. Because he would create money, he had the power to create money, and he did. And he used the revenue from money that is created to do all these things. When the Israelis bombed Entebbe, you know, they rebuilt the airport. You know, then he set up an underground one in Nakasongo. Now, how is that for a reaction? You want to give the man, you know, you want to see, you know, you side of credit. Yeah? So, but now compare it to Uganda today. We have no air.
We have the greatest grain in the Teso swamps. So it's there.
We have no railway. Have you ever seen an economy develop without a railway? You mentioned it, me, I stop talking. Have you ever seen, they say, okay, this is some kind of developed country, and it has no railway. A railway. Now they want to do a flyover. Have you heard this? That they want to do, then flyover and go where? Once you are thrown, where will all those cars go up? You fly away. Are you going to remain permanent in the air? Because even if you go, unless you go into Lake Victoria.
And you don't even swim, there is evidence.
But do you know, somebody in Ministry of Finance once told me, you know, you talk about railway. Let me tell you why you can't allow railway. Just open.
I am the owner of the trucks.
He said, no, to build 1 kilometer of the road, you need $1 million. Just a small railroad like this Northern bypass per kilometer. $1 million per kilometer. a railway line, you need about 200,000.
It's more profitable to build the road. You know what happened?
Yes, that was the point. The point is there isn't enough commission on the railway. You sign 10 kilometers, you know, it is like $2 million. Even if you take 2%, you know, it's nothing. But expressway, do you know that they have also cheated the expressway? You look at the propaganda, they said it was going to be 6 lanes or 4 lanes each side. You remember? Yeah? Now what have they done?
Yeah, with the same, even higher.
Yeah, and the gauge. In other countries, how they build roads, they put reinforcement bars, they pour concrete, they do a slab, literally, a big slab, and the road lasts 50 years. Now, here, they compact our soil using stones which they have bought from some villager, you know, and then put trucks to bring it. They put, bitumen, and then they compact, and they say, here is the road. And then the president opens it. And even when he's opening, the vehicles are swinging, part of the whatever turns and comes off.
They say, we haven't finished.
Then they say, they say, whatever section you find, we shall come and do it properly. Yeah? That is not right. The dollar was reserved by gold up to 1971, when President Nixon withdrew America from the gold reserve. At that time, anybody who was holding a dollar could go and take it and exchange it for 31 ounces of gold. Okay. But by that time, America was involved in war in Laos, in Cambodia, and Vietnam. And they found that they owed the outside world 350 billion, whereas they had gold of less than 100 billion.
It was risky.
So France sent its boats to get its gold. Yeah? And America refused. Germany did the same. France sent warships to say, go and pick our gold because from America, because America was keeping. At the Bretton Woods, they agreed that America becomes a reserve currency, and they set the amount of gold that could be exchanged for the gold. So it was not going to be anytime you have a dollar, you would go anywhere and get your gold back. But when Nixon realized this situation, he took it off and created the fiat currency. Fiat is F-I-A-T, and it means let there be. It means a currency not reserved by anything. So that is when Kissinger goes into Saudi Arabia and persuaded Saudi Arabia to trade its oil with the American dollar. Because oil was everywhere, people were buying cars and everything. So they introduced that concept of the petrodollar. You know, sometimes you hear the petrodollar. The petrodollar was there. Once Saudi Arabia agreed that it will accept the American dollars, then everybody who would buy oil would then have to use the dollar. Then the dollar spread its influence and replaced the pound. Because before that, because of the British Empire, it was the pound. And because the British had discovered credit creation, before everybody else, which they used to really take over. So, that time, in 1971, people should have protested. But then, now you can see how it is all embedded into America. Everybody wants to reserve their money, although the central bank system was created by Britain under Amstel Rothschild. But they have spread it everywhere and then persuaded, because the British and the Americans, they are the same.
They are the same.
The British, the Americans, the Germans, the French, the Anglos and the Saxons came from Germany. The Germans came from France. So they are all the same. Yeah? But in terms of finance, Britain is the financial capital of the world, not America. Yeah? And all these islands that you see, the Jersey, the Bermuda, the Barbados, the whatever, that is where Britain coins all this money and does all this fraud, which is really banking. That's what banking is. The bank always pretends that they are honest and whatever, but there is no honesty in banking. They say anybody who they can. So it is therefore my presentation to you and my submission to you that you understand, that you lobby, so that our own system, uses this national treasure for the benefit of our country. Because our citizens are suffering. I can tell you this. You find a woman, she's sick, she wants to go to hospital, and she doesn't have 5,000. Yeah? That's all right. And now also, one of the things, I don't know whether this falls within your limit. We have a lot of people who spend their wealth in Kampala. But they have villages, homes, and they are not attempting to do anything there. I'm glad that where I was born, before you can speak amongst people, you have to build a house for your mother, and a house for yourself, and have a small farm and a piece of banana plantation. Yeah?
And
But,
some 2 cows.
yeah, and some 2 cows. You know, the cows have no economic benefit in where I am. You know, they just to get 2 liters of milk, you go through so much hardship. You know, but it is there, the status symbol, so and so has got cows. But you know, nations don't develop unless they have alternative cities and alternative villages. Only when our villages become beautiful shall we start talking of a developed country. But you find a person, you're a commissioner, you know. I've been to some parts where they say this house belongs to the commission. They cannot identify it by the mango tree, which is which is adjacent to
By
the
the
house.
father's house.
Persuade the people to go to their villages. Maybe if you have, you as a king, say to somebody, we shall visit you next month. Yeah? Then let's just force that person to prepare, something. For instance, to cut the grass. Yeah? We have our people holding their weddings at the Uganda Museum. In the museum, your parent, did not give birth to you. That's where you were born. At least if you could go to Bravo Hospital in Zambia and hold the wedding at the hospital. But the man is saying, me, Nakawa, there must be a place in Nakawa, like Nakawa recreation. I don't know what is in Nakawa. How is that possible? Because, a wedding is where you are supposed to create wealth at the home. Your uncle, your father, this one bring this, you buy matoke from here, you buy, maize, you grow. Also people visit, they stay in some neighboring hotels, they do this, huh? But now if you pick a wedding and you put it in Nakawa, or you put it at Uganda Museum, or some of these other places, some garden, then you bring your father from the village, and he comes, and he also chooses to receive food. Now, parents, they will think, let everybody first eat because this is our thing. By the time he gets there, the meat is finished and whatever, so they give him a chapati and beans on his son's wedding. That is, so let's also persuade our people, to make the villages, to visit the villages, to invest in the villages. Yesterday, I have some facility that I'm developing in Chambrai, near the National Park. Those of you who have not been, it's not a place I would recommend because near Queen Elizabeth, a hotel room is $300 per person. $300. I mean, Bunyaruguru used to be a place where everybody would think if you come from Bunyaruguru, they think you are completely backward and you involved in a lot of extra, astro, powers. But now the land is so expensive. But I took people from Uganda to dig a well, so that we can pump water. And the district came and they said, there is no water here. We have brought our experts, they have tested, there is no water. Because under our laws, the Water Act, do you know that you can't dig a well under that act? Where they extend. Can you imagine? This is insane. He said, I can't dig my own water. and then next you find a person with a well and people are fetching water, they don't mind them. But if you do it, but anyway, they had said there was no water. So these people came and said, why not? Everywhere there is water, you think are surrounded by lakes. How can you say? They said, no, we brought the experts, the World Bank, the whatever, they brought these experts and the 3 lakes. So yesterday when I was coming to Kampala, they rang me and said, we found the water. And the entire village gathered. Now, to dig a well is 800,000. Davis and Shatscliff, I think they charge 16 million or 20 million. These people charge, 800,000. Then you put a pump, a solar pump, about 1.2, yeah, and a tank. Now, isn't this something we can do for our villages, ourselves? Really, to get a well and put it, or even it's a borehole. Yeah? This is something that we can do for our villages, to have that mentality, because our country will not be rescued by governments. Governments are very poor at building nations. And no country is ever, government follow later. Wanting in fact to hinder you, to ask you for your wealth,
taxes,
to do this, and you can see all these things that they're putting in Financial Intelligence Act, because you want me to be taxed, or you want, so, we, only us, are going to build this country. Only us. Politicians by nature want to present themselves as problem solvers, as gods. But even our budget has to be sent to New York, to Washington, I'm sure you know this. They can, when you go to Ministry of Finance and you are climbing the stairs, you look here, they are discussing Karamoja, and it's only white people. You go there, they are discussing Simaniruero, and it's white people. Yeah? Almost every meeting you see, you will see that they are type marking us. And do you know why? They don't want us to discover how they create credit. I'm honest with you. They don't want you to discover that the money they give you is not there. That they create it, and in fact by you borrowing, they create the financial assets for themselves, and then they will have you alone, and then you pay interest. But the interest they don't create, so you have to steal it from your people, or you have to get it from somewhere. So let us build ourselves. This is your today's work. It might be, some of it might be tomorrow's work, but you always begin tomorrow's work today. You came and said, you know what, we wouldn't mind, credit guidance, if it's going to help the economy. Because you know what happens?
Because men are Ugandans.
No. In economics, when the banks don't lend, there's no money.
Yeah.
But also when people know that if you borrow, the bank will repossess, and the people will not buy, and the business, they will not go to borrow. So you have now that impasse. That's where they introduce, Professor Vanna is the one who is credited for introducing or inventing the concept of quantitative easing. Quantitative easing. When you look for quantitative easing, they bring up his name.
Yeah.
Quantitative easing is now where the government comes in to buy to buy assets, and therefore put more money in the hands of people so that they can spend, and they want to begin spending, and then they can borrow, then there is enough money around and whatever. But even in our economy, there is this feeling, when you ask everybody and they are saying, the economy is bad. The economy is bad, yeah? If you remember during John Major in Britain, they had this concept of feel-good factor, but it is good for the economy. And there is this thing that people assume. They assume that economics is a science, and there are set rules. That's rubbish. Economics is not a science. Economics is a form of speculation. If economics was a science, why would American economy collapse? The world economy collapsed in 2008. Yeah. You imagine what they were doing with subprime mortgages. You get a property like this, you give it to a man who's selling chapatis and earning 100 shillings a day, and you say you can take a mortgage. And as soon as you get the mortgage, you take it out of the mortgage company, you put it in a basket and create a CDO. And at the same time, you ask rating companies to rate it. And then the insurance company, which doesn't have capacity to insure everything, to insure it, and then send it to investors. There is no science. They have now accepted a cycle where they said that a boom and bust cycle. How can that be science? Is it science that we are going to expand and then we are going to contract? We are going to go expand and then it's not a science. Actually, at the end of the day, the best economist is this man who is practicing producing what you eat and maybe exchanging it a little bit with somebody, because he exchanges something real with something that is, with another thing that is real. I give you, you have sorghum, I give you whatever, That's why they were frightened of better trade. When people say, when we started importing it, When
credit creation.
Yes, it affects market trade. Market trade would not work with credit creation.
Yes,
When market trade, you say, no. You give me transformers, I give you beams. You have to produce the transformers and I produce the beams. Now, in this, they say, no. Paper, American dollar. But American dollar, why does it have jurisdiction here? Who agreed that American dollar is legal tender in Uganda? Who agreed to that? Yeah? Where was that negotiation done? Where it is agreed that the American dollar becomes legal tender, and why didn't we request that ours also becomes legal tender there? Yeah? Why didn't we request that? We can say fine, no problem. I mean, it can be legal tender, except we also want Ugandan money to be legal tender there. That is it. And then now they introduce this concept of hard currency. How is it hard? Is it hard you can't ban it? Is it hard that if you force in paper, it will remain? It's called the hard currency. Then what is ours? The soft currency, I suppose. Or no currency, yes? So, my brother, these are things, tools that we can use. Supposed to have education of the mental age of 7. Enough to write a check, to read some advert, to listen to whatever, but really not to
talk about creativity.
Not to think hard, to analyze, to have didactic, concepts. No, that's not supposed to happen to us. We are not supposed to go there. So we can break the mold. We can,
we can also start.
We can start somewhere.
Our 4 children will find that.
Can you imagine? Look at South Africa. Look at South Africa. Look at Botswana. The leading diamond producer. Look at South Africa. Gold, diamond, almost everything you can think of. But look at the South African rand. It's weaker, than the American dollar. America is the world's largest data. The money that America owes the world and find it together. It will make a journey to the sun, come back and encircle the earth about 640 times. It is in debt. But how does a country in debt have no stronger currency than South Africa? And how can South Africa have an employment? How can South Africa not build houses, for its people? Because all they need, South Africa can decide even to have a currency, just pure gold. And said we pay in pure gold.
Countries have accepted the status quo that the pound can be used all over the world, the same as the dollar. And yet, of course, people have started knowing how the economy is. How comes nobody's complaining?
I can tell you categorically that they don't have the knowledge. They simply don't have the knowledge. And the one who has the knowledge, they will shut him up. You remember in 2002 or 2003, just about, when Mbeki organized the NAIDS conference and invited all the scholars to say, show us the virus, you remember? That was the end of Mbeki. After that, they fought him. Because, Mbeki there's a professor called Professor Peter Duisberg in America. He's a member of the American Academy of Science. And another professor is called Kerry Morris. Morris, M-U-S-L-I-S. Morris invented the PCR, the primary chain reaction, which they used to test AIDS.
Yes.
Yeah?